Happy New Year everyone! I thought I'd start this one with something grand. Cathayan. Turned into chaos. I'd always loved the idea of a chaos giant, and when the Cathayan range dropped, I saw this one and thought it could be possible to have an armored Gargant as a living siege engine. So make yourself a drink, lean back, enjoy the video because it's going to be a long one. I first assembled the main body parts, and let me tell you, that wasn't a pleasant experience. All the rumors were true. I cut away the top of his shoes that looked like a cinnamon roll and went on with covering all the gaps this miniature has. Even though these are nice details, it's something I do not connect with the chaos aesthetics. And while the overall idea wasn't very clear at this point, I thought having something like a frost or stone giant might fit very well into my force. So I used milliput and pressed it into all the small details using my fingers. Everything that hasn't found its place at this point was just scraped away with a knife. Once all these gaps were filled, I used a silicone sculpting tool to get it into all the recesses and to smoothen it out as smooth as possible. I do not really mind small bumpers and such, I just hope it will fit the overall aesthetic in the end. And after that I tried to sculpt a small chaos arrow that points from his neck towards his chest. If I knew at this point that I will more or less cover that up soon, I'd not have taken so much time to do so. But it's a nice detail and still completes the overall look of this miniature, so I can book it as practice. When that was done, I went on with covering more details and sculpting more chaos arrows. This time on the legs. I didn't want these flourishes or ornaments to peek through, as they didn't really fit in my opinion. Instead of, I used them as a base, cut away the top part of them and sculpted a chaos arrow out of them. I did the same thing for his feet or shoes, where I pressed the milliput into it from underneath and then sculpted the top part using a sculpting tool. For his pauldrons, I had the idea of turning the ears of that face into horns, which worked surprisingly well. I just used my fingers and the sculpting tool to match the rest of that face as close as possible. I used this time here to welcome the newest patron, Latin Snap, I hope I got that right. Thank you for the support. And when that was done, it was time to sculpt the head. Arguably the most important part of this miniature. For that I cut away the part that holds the face mask together in the middle, using my hobby saw. And after that my hobby knife to make it as flat as possible. And after that it was time to cover up these details and ornaments, again using milliput. And when that was done, it was time for the most important part of the most important part. The horns. Because as we all know, every self-respecting Chaos Warrior has some big horns to decorate his helmet. I again used a little bit of milliput here so that the transition from helmet to horn becomes a little more subtle. I want these to look like a natural growth, as I think it fits the Nurgly horns and the naturalistic approach to this build very well. After the horns found their place, I removed the excess material with a sculpting knife and moved on with the face mask. This one comes from the Chaos Chariot kit and has the perfect size to be used as such a thing. Up until this point I only had a horned Cathayan helmet, but with this thing here I turned this one into an unwilling follower of the Chaos Gods. And when that was done, it was time for the next feature. The shield. If you follow this channel, you know I love shields. And while I could just have 3D printed one, I wanted to see if I'm able to build it myself. I used a thick plastic cardboard and cut it into a more or less rectangle. After that I measured the length of it and cut it into 2 same-sized ones. I realized that I might have been a little bit too generous here and that it would be way too big if I go on like this. So once again a little bit of cutting and breaking was required. And when it had the perfect size, it was time for a coffee. Because the next steps require steady hands and a little bit of concentration. One of the 2 half sides of the shield got an about 30-degree cut, so I could put these 2 sides together and have a more pointy front instead of a pure flat one. The newer Chaos shields are not like the old ones, they actually have a lot of depth in them, and I tried to recreate that, at least to the best of my abilities. And here comes my general I can misuse anything and use the kitchen knife as a template to have these smooth roundings on the sides. And now I make you suffer. And after that very tense moment, we need something to ease the mind. I wanted to recreate this rounding, at least to a degree that would actually match a Chaos Smith and his willingness to craft such a huge shield, so in short, crude but effective. I cut out a, well, shape and used it as a template so I could copy-pasta it for the left and right top part. And when that was done, I used green stuff and a tiny amount of super glue to weld these 2 sides together. I reinforced them later when this step is dried out. But first I glue his torso to his legs. I gave it an ever so slightly more angled appearance than the original miniature, so he looks more agile in the end. And while this hardens, I built myself a makeshift loincloth or crotch flabbergastism, whatever you want to call this. Once again, the Great Unclean One provided these ones. I just covered the Nurgly symbols on the foreheads. Once that's done, I used this original weapons kit, or at least 2 parts of it, to have something like a leg joint protection. And coming back to the shield. With the help of 2 green stuff balls, I used this Bloodthirster shoulder armor as a focus point. After that I cut out some Wrath Chaos trim and Chaos arrows using plastic card once again. I generally did not try to be neat here, the more chaotic they look, the better. One of them broke apart, but this was just a happy little accident. And while you see me doing this, I use these few seconds to invite you to my Discord server. The link is down below. And when they were in place, it was time for the arms to fit into the arm missing places and to glue the hand that still holds a little bit of that pole arm onto it. Speaking of pole arms, I removed the end piece of it because I only needed one side with a blade to create something like a halberd. I guess I got it this time. And because he holds said halberd with one arm in a very pointy way, I needed to cut away a bit of his hand so it looks a little more natural. It looks kinda rough, but green stuff will make that work. I placed that green stuff between his hand and the forearm to have a connection. And because in my mind polearms can also be controlled with the rest of your body, I glued the backside of it to the giant's back, giving this entire arm a lot of stability while doing so. The shield was also attached via another blob of green stuff in this glorious shot. I had a lot of spare milliput and thought I could bulk up his pauldrons with it, but I had to drill some holes into it because of the added weight, put a metal rod into it, mark the according sides and drill 2 according holes into the torso. And of course the milliput wasn't as round as I wanted it to be. I thought I'd just dirty up my entire workspace. Not worth it, 0 out of 10 experience. But the pauldrons look cool now, so maybe it's a little bit worth it. And after that whole endeavor, I placed his head between his shoulders and made it look alongside his pointing halberd. And because chaos is not chaos without big horns, we need more horns. A little bit inspired from Magnus's chest horns, I decided to make something similar here and use these, I guess, Wilderfiend's ones on his chest. And to complete his looks, he obviously needed some more for his back. And once all these horns were in place, it was time to tackle his dingly dangles, which I just glued on with a little help of green stuff. And now that the rough frame of this big miniature needs to dry, I thought I might build him a fitting base. A little bit of cork ripped into various pieces, some leftover 3D printed ruins from terrain for print, and more cork. And while I was laying down these cork bits, I had the idea of making something like a riverbank or a small stream. And to make this giant look like an in-game giant and not just a big steady action figure, I need something to compare his scale to. And as every self-respecting Chaos follower, I have about 1 million of these old Chaos warriors laying around. I just gave 2 of these one of the newer shields because they do have a different size and shape compared to the old ones, and even though I really like the old Chaos warriors, I will feel this one into my Slaves to Darkness, so the warriors need to get some newer heads as well. And now onto that detail work. I mean, I built a giant here, and giants are known for collecting useless stuff that's useful in their eyes. And I wanted to keep this theme here, so I used some chains to glue a shield onto his shield. Because more protection is good. And horns. These here are as well from the same Mini Monsters EU kit. And with these horns I call the shield complete. And a Wendigo-like skull for the weapon. Because why not? Some more various bits from Chaos over to Goblins and Cities of Sigmar stuff. I just picked more and more of these small bits and placed them all over the miniature where I thought they fit. And after that I created a rope out of wire. Chris from Offbeat Builds made this look so easy, and it really is. Just a little bit of wire into a cordless screwdriver and not holding the other side just in your hand. And when I created a tiny rope-like metal rope, I frickled it through a Cities of Sigmar shield. And placed that shield somewhere around his back to protect his rear. And as this giant hero seems to have a thing for collecting shields, I gave him another one a rare Stormcast Eternal one to be exact. And a small goblin. Gotta have a snack from time to time, right? And some more dangling dinghies. This one here had to be drilled and pinned as well. I bet it didn't feel that nice. And after that I used some various bits I had flying around to decorate the base. Some crates, where I put some weapons into, another Chaos Warrior, a Marauder banner, a very important small Chaos Dwarf from Warcry, and with all that in place I put some PVA glue onto that base and some pebbles. And while all that dries, I thought I wanted to give this one a bit more texture, and being some kind of a stone giant anyway, I thought some crackle paint would do him justice. After that, I let him fully dry out for a couple of days, primed him black and started painting. With a brush. Because something isn't right with me. I wanted to have some very nice undercoating and texture paint right from the start. So I used dark sea blue, abyssal turquoise, black and dark rust to cover up the entire miniature and base. And because I didn't want my future self to suffer more than necessary, I used a small trick and painted everything that's going to be golden with burnt red first, as well as the horns. And for the soon-to-be blackish armor, I used Corvus Black and Neutral Grey, which I just stippled all over the parts, getting brighter the closer I get to the highest points. For his weapon, I thought I matched my scheme of my Slaves to Darkness as well, and started with Vallejo's Dark Sea Blue and got brighter the closer I got to the top of it using white. Once that was done, I started painting all the soon-to-be golden trim, for which I used Pro Acryl's bronze, copper and witch gold smudged together in a random pattern. At least as random as possible. While painting these golden details, I kept in mind not to cover all of it, but to leave a little bit of that earlier painted brown showing. Right now it looks kind of strange, but trust the process, it will turn out glorious. And for the very few iron-like metal parts, I used dark silver, also by Pro Acryl. Once that's done, I shaded all the golden parts with Reichland Flash Shade and Agrex Earth Shade in a more or less 50-50 mix. This really ties the brown and gold together and creates a lot of variation, making this big dude not look so boring. And when that was done, I started edge highlighting the weapons using a 50-50 mix of turquoise and white. I used the same mixture to paint a runestone hanging from his neck, and here's a little trick for you: if you cannot reach something, just switch hands. And with this mind-bending advice, I painted a glowing area around it and got brighter the closer I got to the center of that runestone. And once that's done, I painted some more details, and the Stormcast Eternal's shield got the colors of my Storm host, which is actually Jade. But more of that later this year. To finish his stunning looks, I painted his top knot and the few bits that looked like fabric with a 50-50 mix of dark purple and magenta. And when that was done, I painted the top of the horns with elfic flesh, following the shapes of them as well as all the skulls that hang somewhere on this big fella. And once that's done, I darkened down the silver and some of the black or grey parts with Darken-Off Nightshade. After that, I very lightly touched up some edges of that gold trim and painted some watercolors on that soon-to-be river, for which I used AK Interactive still water and called it done. I think it's quite hard to build and kitbash such a big miniature, at least for me, which means I have to do it more, right? The one thing I kind of regret not doing was not to cover up the ornamented part of that armor. I guess having a thick layer of mordant earth or another crackle paint over these parts would have made this look even cooler. But anyway, we finally reached an end here, so I take the time to thank you all for an amazing 2025. I hope I can improve even more in 2026. The goal is to get a custom Warhound Titan for the Pale Jackals, but only if we reach the 100 supporter mark over here on YouTube or on Patreon. So let's see if we can reach that. But up until this point, we are going to see each other in the next one.